Okay, so we're starting chapter 3. In chapter 3, especially section 1, is very heavy in the vocabulary. So if you don't have your vocabulary grid out, take a second and pause and go get it for a minute. Okay, so the first four are our first four vocabulary words here: parallel lines, parallel planes, skew lines, and perpendicular lines. So we're going to do a little matching here. So parallel lines, the symbol for parallel is the two double bars, and that's a good symbol because parallel means they're not going to touch, and so these two bars are not touching. So that would be coplanar, but don't intersect. Remember coplanar from chapter 1? Co means they're going to share, and planar, of course, means plane. So they're going to share a plane, but not touch. So opposite sides like this. Parallel planes, we can still use the same symbol for parallel, but they're going to be two planes that don't intersect. Skew is our new one for this chapter, probably one that you haven't heard before. There's not a symbol for skew, but skew means that they're not coplanar and they're not going to intersect. So parallel would be on the same plane, not intersecting. Skew is going to be on opposite planes, not intersecting, and we'll talk about that more in the first example when we can see a visual. Perpendicular, this is the symbol for perpendicular, and we know that that means they intersect at 90 degrees, so they're making a right angle. So we're going to look for that little right angle box that we talked about in chapter 1. Okay, good. So vocabulary we've got. So let's do our first example here. Identify the types of lines and planes. Now, with something like this, there are several choices for all of these. I'm going to name a few, and I'm going to have you, you can name all of them if you want to, but I'm just going to name a couple. Okay, so parallel segments, we're looking for them to be on the same plane, but not intersecting. So if I look at the top of this card deck here, I could choose KL is parallel to NM. Or on that same plane, I could also do NK is parallel to ML. I could go and I could do that on every plane. If I look at the plane that's on the right side, I could say ML is parallel to RQ. I could say MR is parallel to LQ. I could do that on the bottom and on the right side. It just keeps going and going. So you only had to name one. Just give you a couple of examples there. Alright, skew is our new one. Remember from our vocabulary, they are not coplanar and they're not going to intersect. So we're looking for, like, let's say I choose NM. Now NM is a part of the top and a part of the front. So I want to pick something, another plane that is not on the top or on the front because I don't want it to be coplanar. So, and then NM, if you'll look, is going left to right. So I want something going in an opposite direction. So I'm going to choose LQ. See how NM is on the front top going side to side. LQ is on the back right going up and down. So they're not in the same plane and they're not going to intersect. I could have just as easily chosen KP for that. That would have worked. Even PS would have been fine. Okay, let's choose another one. What about if I chose PQ? So PQ is on the back and the bottom going side to side. So maybe a good choice for that would be NS. Excuse my ESPN alert. Is going in the front, going up and down. So they're not going to intersect and they're not on the same plane. So what you're looking for is opposite sides of the figure going opposite direction. So one going side to side, one going up and down. Good, very good. Okay, perpendicular is going to happen, this is a rectangular prism, so it's going to happen anywhere you see these right angle marks. I don't know if you can see them very clearly on your notes. So find a right angle mark and find those two lines. So for this right angle mark, I can choose MR is perpendicular with RQ. Okay, or I could choose NK is perpendicular with KL. If you'll notice about perpendicular, they're always going to have one of the same letter, and that's where they're going to be intersecting. So this one shares an R, this one shares a K. Like I said, there's several other choices that you could choose from, but these are just a couple of examples. All right, parallel planes. With a rectangular prism, you've got three choices. You can either choose top, bottom, left, right, or front, back. And it doesn't matter, whichever one you choose, just make sure you name it properly. Remember from chapter 1, how you name a plane is you have to use the word plane, and then you pick 3 letters on the plane. So let's say I'm going to do the top and the bottom. So to name the top, my choices are K, L, M, or N. But to name a plane, I only use 3 letters. So just choose any 3 of those. So I'm going to say K, L, M. So that's the top. And that would be parallel with the bottom. So out of the bottom, I can choose P, Q, R, or S. Only choose 3 because that's how you name a plane. So plane KLM, the top, is parallel with plane PSR, the bottom. You could do that again for front and back. Plane NMR is parallel with plane LKP. Or left and right. Plane MLQ is parallel with plane NKP. Okay, good. So pause here and look at the check it out example and try to do all of those. You don't have to do a million examples, just 1 or 2. Okay, so here's my check it out parallel. I did a couple of examples. BF is parallel with EJ. If you'll notice these little arrow markings, those are symbols for parallel. So BF, EJ, DH, and CG all have 1 arrow mark. So any of those 4 I could have done and they would have all been parallel to one another because they're all going up and down. Now notice CD, GH, FJ, and BE all have 2 arrow marks on them. That means those are all parallel to one another. It's kind of like the angle, the tick marks or the arc marks. So that's a good way to look at it to help you to identify which ones are parallel. Okay, so I chose CD and GH, but I could have just as easily chosen GH and FJ. There's a bunch of different examples there. Okay, skew. Remember, skew is not in the same plane and not going the same direction. So I chose BF here in the front going up and down, then CD in the back going left and right. So those are not going to intersect and they're not in the same plane. Okay, I also chose FJ here in the front bottom with going side to side, with DH in the back going up and down. So they're not in the same plane, they're not going the same direction, so they're never going to intersect. Perpendicular, any of the corners where you're meeting, you could have chosen perpendicular because this is a rectangular prism. So the first one I chose ED and DH. Again, notice that you're always going to have 1 letter that matches because they're going to be intersecting at that letter. Then I also chose for another example FG and GC. So here and here. Good. So again, you see that common letter there where they're intersecting. Last one, parallel planes. I chose plane CDE, that's the top, with plane FGH, that's the bottom. Top and bottom are going to be parallel. And for another example, I chose EDH, that's the right, with BCG, that's the left. I could have just as easily done front and back as well. Good. Oh, that purple pen didn't work out very well for me. Okay, next we're moving on to kinds of angles, so more vocabulary here. So if you need to get your vocabulary chart out to refer back to, you certainly can. Line that intersects 2 coplanar lines at 2 different points. Now, the line that's doing the intersecting, that is our transversal, and we know that from our vocabulary grid. And what that's going to create is a bunch of different angles, and you can see the example down here. This line going up and down is the transversal because he's intersecting 2 different lines. So that's what that means right there. Okay, we're looking for angles that lie on the same side of the transversal and the same side of the line. So that would be like top left, top left. So that would be like this angle, this angle. They're in the same spot, but they're on 2 different lines. That is our corresponding. Okay, opposite sides of the transversal between the two lines. Now these are easy because the word's telling you what to do. Opposite sides, that is alternate, opposite, alternate. Between the two lines means that it's on the interior. So that's how I know I want alternate interior. So in a picture, that one would be like this. Opposite side, one's on the left, one's on the right, but they're in the middle, so alternate interior. Opposite sides of the transversal outside the two lines. Again, we know opposite means alternate. Now outside would be exterior, so alternate exterior. In a picture, that would be like this. Still alternate, one's on the left, one's on the right, but now instead of being between, now they're outside, alternate exterior. Last one, same side of the transversal between the two lines. Same side, same side. Between the two lines we know from earlier is interior. So that would be B. In a picture, that would be something like this. Same side of the line between the two lines. Okay, these are going to become very important because we're going to use these in 3.2 and 3.3 to talk about their measures. So we need to definitely know the names of all of these. Okay, so let's do some examples here. We're going to name all of these so that we don't leave anybody out. So corresponding, if you'll remember back from up here, same spot, just two different intersections. So top left, top left. So we're going to do that here, right? If we do top left, that would be angle 1 and angle 5. Top right would be angle 2 on the top and angle 6 on the bottom. Bottom left would be angle 4 in the top intersection with angle 8 in the bottom. And last one would be bottom right, and that would be angle 3 and angle 7. So there are 4 pair of corresponding angles anytime we have this situation going on. Alternate interior. So all we remember, that's opposite sides of the line, but between the two other angles. So there's only 2 choices for that. Angle 4 and angle 6. One's on the left, one's on the right, but they're in between. And then the opposite would be angle 3, and angle 5. Still alternate, one's on the left, one's on the right, and they're still between the other 2 lines. So only 2 choices for that one. Same with alternate exterior, only 2 choices, 1 and 7. Opposite sides, but now outside, and 2 and 8. Angle 2 and angle 8. The dog wants inside. Okay? Good. Last one would be same side interior. So we're looking for them both to be on the left or both to be on the right. Interior still tells us we want to be between the 2. So I have 2 choices there as well. Angle 4 and angle 5 are both on the left and they're in between the 2 lines. And then on the other side, angle 3 and angle 6. Now, if these still aren't making sense, you need 1, some more practice, but 2, to learn your vocabulary. So go back over your vocabulary grids if these aren't making sense, and you can rewatch the example. Okay, last example here is kind of the same thing, only we have 3 different lines intersecting. So we have to first pick which transversal we're talking about, and then talk about which kind of angles they are. Okay, so A says 1 and 5. So if you look at angle 1 and angle 5, the first thing to do is identify the transversal. So you're just looking at which line do both of those touch. So they're both touching this line going through here, which would be line N. Remember, if you use the script letter, you have to use the word line. Then we have to talk about which kind they are. So I can see first that one is on the left side and one's on the right side. So I know they're going to be alternate. Then the other 2 lines would be L and M. So if you put your hands like that, you can see they're on opposite sides and they're between L and M. So that would be alternate interior. Good. Now let's try 3 and 6. So here's 3. And here's 6. They're both touching this line going through here. So that would be line M for my transversal. Okay, I can see that they're both on the same side of the transversal. They're both on the left. So that means they're either same side interior or corresponding. Now, 3 is on the inside. He's down below line L, but so is 6. He is below line N. So they're not same side interior because 6 is on the bottom. He's on the outside. So same side, but they're both in the same position. Like if you look here, this is bottom left. If you look at this intersection, this is bottom left. So that is corresponding. Corresponding is the one that people forget because it's not alternate interior, same side interior. It has a different kind of name, so hold on to that one. Okay, pause here and y'all try C and D, and then when you come back you can see if you got it right. Okay, 1 and 4 are both touching line L. They are outside the other two lines and on opposite sides of the transversal. One's on bottom, one's on top. So that would be alternate exterior. 2 and 5. 2 and 5 are both touching line N. They're on the same side of the transversal. Both are on the right side, and they're between the other two lines. So that would be, same side interior angles. Okay, so lots of vocabulary here. So if this isn't sinking in, we went through this rather quickly. Rewatch the video. Go over your vocabulary grid again. You can also go on to the online textbook and watch the videos on the online textbook for a different look at it, a different example. Make sure you're at least 85% sure about what's going on before you come to class tomorrow. Otherwise, shoot me a message on My Big Campus or come in for tutorials in the morning.